Hi, in this video, I'm going to quickly summarize some of the insights I took out of reading this book, Atomic Habits by James Clear. This book gave me 4 steps that are useful for building any habits. If we understand how habits are built, then we can make changes, build new habits, or even stop old bad habits. So, what are the 4 steps that every habit formation goes through? First, anything that we do repeatedly is triggered with a cue. Once there is a trigger with a cue that is established in our brain, we then have a desire or a craving that we want that thing. Once we have that desire, then we spring into action based on the intensity of that desire. Once we have sprung into action and done whatever it's needed to get what we wanted to get, then we get a reward. The reward can be satisfying or non satisfying. So that's the 4 steps. Think about it. There's a trigger, a cue for everything that we want, and this internal desire, a craving. Then we jump into action, which is our response. And then finally, we get rewarded for the action that we took. Now, each of these 4 steps can be made impactful if we can make the cue, the trigger, obvious. If we want to build a new habit, we want to make sure that the triggers that we have that make us go into that 4 step process are obvious. So, making the cue obvious is the foundation in which we can make this habit formation loop start. Once the cue is made obvious, we want to make sure that the craving is attractive enough that there's enough desire for that craving. Let's say you want to wake up at 6 in the morning and you've never woken up before 10. So you need a cue. It could be an alarm, that could be your cue, a trigger. And there's got to be some craving. There's a reason why you want to wake up early in the morning. If it's not attractive enough, where the desire is not good enough for you to wake up, you're never going to wake up. And then third is your response. Once we have that desire that, I want to wake up, then it's a response. The response shouldn't be too difficult for you to take action. If you, let's say, wake up at 10, and all of a sudden you start deciding that starting tomorrow I'm going to wake up at 5. Maybe that's too drastic. It's not easy. So your response is not easy. Maybe you say, hey, I'll start at 9, waking up at 9 because I always wake up at 10. That's slightly easier. You could say, hey, 9:45, slam dunk maybe. So making response easy is the foundation. And finally, the fourth one, reward. If we did do all of that effort, we put the alarm, we understand why it's important for me to wake up, is enough desire internally. I made it so that it's not a big stretch. And I did all the work after waking up that I wanted to wake up for. Is the reward satisfying? Because let's say you did all of that and your reward was not satisfying, then that's not useful. So making the reward satisfying is important. So understanding these 4 steps and then understanding what makes the first step connect to the second step is important. Cue will never get connected to craving if the cue is not obvious. So that's important. Similarly, let's say you want to stop watching TV. If you come in your home and the first thing you see is your TV, and that's a trigger. You're already seeing something that you can turn on. But what if your TV was in the basement or somewhere far off? And that's no longer a trigger. You see how this can be made to build new habits, and you can also use the same technique to stop bad habits. So these are the 4 steps. Now we're going to go into each of these 4 areas one by one. So cue, we want to make it obvious, right? With this whole work from home situation, our workspace and our home space have blurred for a lot of technology, IT, software engineers like me. So when you use the work table at your home for the same purpose, for eating, maybe doing some personal work, then you are not really using that table that you used to work from home for your office distinct enough. So you want to make your cue very obvious. You want to have a specific time blocked where you will work on that activity. If it's like 9 to 6, you're working. When you're working, you have a block time and it's a clear triggers. It's 9 a.m., gotta get to work. 6, it's time to focus on home activities. So blocking a specific time is a trigger. Time is a trigger. And then a specific space. Consider a table where you only work for office, and a table where you eat maybe is a separate table. Maybe a table where you do your personal work is a separate space altogether. So dedicated space has a huge impact because you get into this flow state. You say, hey, if I'm sitting here, I'm here to work for office. So having that very specific divide between time, using time as your trigger, using space as your trigger, and using specific activities like, hey, 5:45, 6, you wind down, right? So you have to have specific activities of wind down routines and specific routines to get back on track. So making your cues obvious, distinct in time and space, and also connecting it to a habit that's already working. Then you can start to work on time. Similarly, if you want to wake up early, the first step you may want to do is sleep on time, right? So make your cues obvious, make your environment such that it supports you, and then use a habit that's already working to build a new habit. Second, we want to make the craving super attractive. Remember that slice of pizza that you see in ad commercial? It feels super attractive, right? You have this desire to eat, right? Our brain is wired to get this instant gratification. And we get this anticipation of when we see that slice that, oh, I'm going to eat it. And we get this dopamine rush. And so then there's motivation. There's this attractiveness factor when you see a slice of pizza, at least for me. And we also tend to like praises, right? So if we are in a situation or a culture or a place where our work is rewarded, then that's a pretty easy win for us because now all of a sudden that work becomes more attractive because people are going to praise you for the great work you're doing. And if you are part of that culture where you're not only rewarded, but you see other people who like who you want to become do that, then you'll automatically imitate them. So, being part of a situation or a place or a city or a country where people are already doing what you wish to be doing, that has a powerful impact. Your environment has a powerful impact. And you automatically start to imitate those people and you anticipate praises that are coming in and you get validation feedback loops. So making your cravings attractive by leveraging the praise that you get, by making your environment such that it's naturally considered to be a good thing to be doing what you're doing, then it's going to make your craving more attractive. Third, response. It's got to be easy, right? We want to make sure that we make progress on a daily basis and not postpone until we get a perfect plan. We want steps that we can take in baby steps. Like if you want to start waking up early in the morning, the first step you want to do is start sleeping early in the night. Then you want to start maybe disconnecting from your devices slightly earlier. Maybe you want to eat your dinner in such a way that it's digested by the time you want to wake up and stuff like that. So, in a sense, you want to break down a big habit you want to build into various phases And then each of those phases, you want to have a 5 minute or a 2 minute rule where you say, hey, what is the smallest, tiniest step I can take? And then that propels you into action. Let's say you want to wake up at 5 in the morning and you always used to wake up at 10. Then you say, okay, I'm going to wake up at 9:45. That's an easy 2 minute thing that you can start practicing. It's like, hey, this 2 minute rule is basically a small baby step, right? And so you go get into action, stop planning for perfection, and you do it in such a way that that small step is with the least friction, and you automate as much as possible whichever good behavior. Like if you if you think that you scroll the internet quite um, long in the night because you're distracted, then you may want to use technology to automate disconnecting your router and making it extremely hard. It's just a simple example of how you can automate good behavior by using a coach, paying in advance for that coach for the gym exercise, or even setting up systematic investment plan for your finances. So using technology to automate savings, automate appointments with your gym trainer, that's really making it easy. So take the first step. That's the key. Finally, we want to make the reward satisfying. We want to see progress. We want to visualize progress. And we don't want to beat ourselves up if we miss one of the days. But we need to remind ourselves not to miss the second time. We want to get back to our habit formation loop, and we want to master one habit at a time. Don't pick up 20 habits. Start with one. Make sure you visualize the progress, that you reward yourself after achieving those small steps. Because, see, the brain is wired for instant gratification. But typically, when we plan for delayed gratification, ideal plan. But in the moment when you're trying to wake up at 5 in the morning, the brain's like, hey, it's instantly satisfying to just continue to sleep. And long behold, 5 a.m. alarm becomes the 10 a.m. time. So, reward, make it satisfying. Finally, there will be a lot of things you want to do. You want to explore and exploit to find out what is it that's unique about you that you want to form habits. And remember, these habits are best formed for the things that you like to do. It comes easy to you, but also something that you enjoy doing, right? So search for various things that you want to do. If you get negative feedback loops and it's not working, continue to explore. But if you start to see positive loops, then exploit that situation. There are various tests you can take. The book talks about big 5 personality traits. It basically figures out what is it that you want to do that comes naturally to you, and what is your personality trait. What gets you into the state of flow? What gets you into this timelessness, or this the space where time just pauses? You can continue to do that work. Those kind of things, those kind of habits, if you start to build, then that has intrinsic motivation, right? Look at this piece, right? XKCD. Uh, this person is really good at two things that are unique. First, writing good jokes, but then also, you know, good at drawing. Not extremely good at both, but really good at both in some capacity, so that um, the combination is a killer. So figure out what is the game that you want to master over time. What is the habit you really want to build? Where you invent the game. Like, what are your strengths? And you combine those key rare strengths for things that comes naturally to you, where it's a burden for a lot of people, and you get into the state of flow because you've done some assessments and you've picked work that you love, and you become the best at it, starting with progress over perfection, but eventually mastering that craft. And you need some way in which you reflect on a daily basis, 6 months basis, and even yearly basis to check How are you doing? Because only when you track this that you can visualize and be honest about how your true progress is. And finally, the biggest takeaway in all of this is even if we did one thing well, when we commit to doing one thing well and we continue to do it for long periods of time, those small, small habits, once you mastered them over time, it adds up. So, this is huge. Start to build small, positive habits towards this large goal that you have and keep at it. And you will see huge transformation in your life. So I'm curious, how did you find this set of 4 key steps in habit formation? What hacks have you used and what tools, tests maybe you've taken to build habits? And put that in the comment section below. I want to learn from each one of you what worked for you. Enjoy building the habits. Thanks.